Tariq Aziz, Saddam's deputy prime minister, not seen at all. Saddam Hussein himself, nowhere to be found. And that's your update. If you're just waking up on the American East Coast, this war has not taken a turn. It's continued down the same road, and watching it all along, our correspondent Greg Kelly on the front lines at every moment of the entire night. Greg, it was fascinating to watch on the overnight. You got up this morning, the first thing they told you and the first thing that you saw, my friend.
Shepard, we knew last night that we were moving out, and there was a lot of trepidation about this move. We were expecting a lot of enemy contact. We saw a fair amount of enemy contact. Let me tell you, we moved out shortly before 6 o'clock this morning. We didn't want to engage any civilian commuters, and we entered the city of Baghdad. We did it 2 days ago. We saw a lot of resistance. We did it today. Again, saw a lot of resistance. Suicide attackers coming at us in white vehicles with explosives on board. Also, Republican Guard firing small arms, mortars, and RPGs at the column. But these guys, fairly used to it. We proceeded up Highway 8, made a right on Qadisiyah Expressway that leads into the heart of downtown Baghdad. And from that point, some of the units spread out. We took this palace. We are coming to you now from Saddam Hussein's, literally from Saddam Hussein's front yard. Now, he has a lot of palaces, but this is one of the main ones in Baghdad. The other palace, just off the river, is also in the hands of coalition forces, as well as that parade ground where Saddam Hussein likes to do those elaborate military parades. And other points of interest, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the area around the Al Rashid Hotel, also in control. You mentioned this palace. We were inside it, got to take a look around. It is kind of everything you might expect in a palace. Pretty ornate inside, marbled floors and beautiful chandeliers, but also a lot of rubble. As you mentioned, this was one of the first targets hit before the air war started. Before the ground war started. This was hit by coalition air power. Right now, we're going to maintain this position. You mentioned the Marines. A lot of people here glad to hear that they are on their way, or at least trying to get in to Baghdad. We haven't heard about those bridges ourselves here. Unit commanders interested in that information. Also, unit commanders very interested in the Iraqi Minister of Information. When he was giving that talk, we were over at the parade ground. Everyone wanted to know, unit commanders wanted to know what he was saying and where he was saying it from. They were hoping for some sort of message of surrender. That did not come, but they are very interested in seeing that man face to face and proving to him and proving to the world that, yes, coalition forces are in Baghdad and they are here to stay. Shepard.
Greg, we're looking at pictures there near the parade ground where Saddam Hussein, for picture after picture and event after event, looked at his troops and all of the rest. You were there just a few hours ago. Tell me about being in that spot.
Shepard, it was just kind of surreal. We've seen it all on the news when he stands there and sees his military formations go by. Well, today there were no Iraqi military vehicles. It was just us, and with American M1 tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles. Troops cleared the stands, making sure there weren't any enemy soldiers in the stands. Two Iraqi, we couldn't tell if they were caretakers or security guards, were being held. They were basically taken prisoner. But there was a lot of jubilation. The forces there, the U.S. forces, feeling very tall that they had come so far. And they kind of capped off the event by taking down a statue of Saddam Hussein, a very big statue on the opposite side of the parade ground of Saddam Hussein sitting on a horse. Well, I think we took it live. A tank, which happens to go by the name courtesy of the red, white, and blue. Every M1 tank has a name, usually written on the tube. It fired one round and obliterated that statue, and a lot of celebration, a lot of cries of joy, but also the realization that this thing isn't over yet. In fact, while we were there was fighting really just a few hundred meters from our position in a park. And in the words of our commander, Colonel David Perkins, there are still a lot of bad guys out there, and fighting continues. Shepard?
Greg, I want to show our viewers in just a minute that first arrival at Saddam Hussein's palace, and then the extraordinary denial on the part of the information minister. But for those viewers who may just be waking up, this just into us, let's take that full. Here is the latest update If we can take that picture full, please, so I could take a read here. The United States saying now that it has set up checkpoints on all major arteries into Baghdad to stop Iraqi military movement, but civilians will still be allowed to go freely. Quoting here, I would characterize what we're doing in Baghdad as having isolated Baghdad. That is that we have checkpoints at all of the major arteries leading into and out of the city. That from Central Command Major Rummy Nelson Green speaking directly to Fox News. We will ensure that the military assets that they have cannot move freely, either in and out, or the local people can still clear all the checkpoints and conduct life as normally. We will continue to apply pressure until the regime topples. Greg, in listening to your reports overnight, listening to you interviewing the people in charge of these operations in the field, I got the clear sense that from a military standpoint, the belief is that though there are battles to come, the war is won.
I wouldn't go that far, Shep. I would say that they have definitely seen the light at the end of the tunnel is there. It's very bright, but there is still fighting going on. We can hear artillery and incoming shells right now, and we can hear sporadic fire. We took mortars in this position not too long ago. They all know that they're going to win. That's what they'll tell you. But they caution that there is some work to be done, particularly supply routes into and out of the city. Those have to be secured. We may have this castle, we may have another castle, but there has to be a constant flow of troops and material from where we are to where we came from. So there's still some work to be done.
Indeed, a lot of work to be done, and I want to show our viewers who were not up all night exactly how it went down as the first troops arrived at the palace, and only one network there to watch. Take a look at Greg Kelly from just about 5 hours ago.
We have one company from a tank battalion here. What we have in the city now is the entire armor brigade. We have the rest of this battalion is securing this palace, as well as one further down the road, the 14 July Monument. We're securing the bridge that goes over the peninsula where a lot of the high officials reside, and a lot of reinforcements were coming over. I have another battalion who's securing the rest of the center of the city, the Al Rashid Hotel, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the parade field, the VIP seating area, et cetera, like that, and all the major governmental buildings. So right now we really have control of the center of Baghdad and what is the heart of his governmental structure.
You control the city. Are we going to stay here?
We'll continue to develop the situation. We'll see what our tactical requirements are and how they fit into the overall situation. There's a lot of ways that we can control this ground. There's a lot of ways we can control entrance and exits, and so there's many things that will go into that decision. We will probably continue to move around, not be stationary, so that it's an evolving situation.
You were probably the first American commander inside Saddam Hussein's presidential palace. What are you thinking?
I'll tell you, it is a testament to the American soldier, what they have done to get here. We have been fighting nonstop contact for about the last 17 days, moved 500 to 600 miles with all these vehicles, sustained numerous casualties, overcome just almost insurmountable odds, crossing the Euphrates multiple times, moving all the equipment through fairly untrafficable terrain. And now you can see a bunch of American soldiers standing at the entrance to the palace. I think it's a testament to the capability of the United States Army.
Do you feel like we've won at this point, or is victory still a couple of days away? How close are you to wrapping this thing up?
Tactically, we obviously have crushed his armed resistance, and the American soldier has been victorious from that point of view. There's obviously a lot of political restructuring that has to occur. Our desire is that by us now occupying the city, we're already working with the locals to show that we don't mean them any harm. We want to get the city back up and running, that they will see that we are here for their benefit, and the sooner the Iraqi people take control of their own country and get things back up and running, I think that will define total victory.
Well, it's amazing to be talking to you, Colonel, from Saddam Hussein's front yard, literally his front yard. That's where we're coming to you from. As the Colonel said, other elements of the brigade are securing other key sites in this city. It's a whole new war.
And that was Greg Kelly just a few short hours ago. The first interview, the first Western journalist ever on the site of that palace, at least under circumstances like this. In 1998, when the weapons inspectors were there was some showing around and the like. but certainly never in the private areas before, and certainly not when that palace was outside of Saddam Hussein's control. That a bit of history. And now Greg Kelly is standing by live at that same palace with a lieutenant colonel who helped make all of this happen. Greg, take it away.
And Peabody did too, right? I told you.
Hey, Shep, real quick, I want you to meet Lieutenant Colonel Flip DeCamp. He's from, well, you went to school in Georgia. I don't know where you're from.
School in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia.
Listen,
I'm an Army brat.
We are in this, we took this palace today.
Took this palace?
I was inside before you were, but you saw the other palace up the road. Tell me about that one.
The other palace is beautiful. It is fully marble, glass walls. The ceilings are 20 feet high. And it looks like you're inside of the American History Museum at the Smithsonian. You walk into a place that looks like where the pendulum is inside of the American History Museum.
Well, we got to check that one out because I think it sounds a lot nicer than this. Let me ask you this. Some people back home are saying this thing is probably all but one. Would you agree?
Well, we still have a lot of pockets of resistance. Every one of my companies is still taking prisoners, still has dismounts, giving them sniping shots and those, small arms fire, a little bit of RPG fire here and there. We still have the suicide bombers or suicide cars that are flying across the bridge. I think they've finished that now. They figured out with 6 cars dead on the bridge, and we've stacked them all on a big load. They can't get through. So we kind of have the Tigris Bridge that goes north to south, more or less blocked now.
Overall, do you think, did you see the kind of resistance you were expecting? I mean, last night there seemed to be some worried people walking around. Maybe it was just me, but was it as bad as you thought it was going to be today?
Well, Greg, it wasn't. We thought there'd be a lot more guys out there. Of course, the Rogues were in front of us for probably 3/4 of the route till we broke off on our route. They took a lot of the contact, bypassed a little bit. We had a few RPGs and small arms firing to our flanks as well. And then when we came down our separate route, we had a few BMPs, a couple BRDMs, but it wasn't a full-fledged coordinated attack. It seems like sporadic pockets where guys just decide that we're all going to die for Allah right here under this bridge. And they do it. They die for Allah.
Flip, thanks for getting us here this safely. There's coming into Baghdad, there's only one way to do it, and that's behind a battalion of tanks. So we're grateful that you were leading the way, and thank you for getting us here this safely, and good luck in the remaining operations.
Thanks, Greg.
Hey, Greg, before he gets away, Greg, grab it for just a second if you could, Greg, because I wanted to clear up some different accounts as given. The Iraqi information minister has said that they will take the visiting journalists around the city because it's their belief that the army which is in there is going to hold those positions like the one where you are now for a short time and then leave that position. Is he accurate that the plan now is to leave this position, or is this to be held from now on?
The Iraqi information minister seems to think that the U.S. military will be leaving, and they're going to show journalists, U.S. journalists in the city that the U.S. forces have in fact left. Is that what the? I'm sorry, you were in and out.
That's precisely what the information minister said. Yes.
Okay. Are you guys leaving? And if they do bring American journalists and Western journalists around the city today and in the days to come, what are they going to see?
Well, I don't want to tell you where we're going and what we're doing tonight, but I think they'll see Americans in their city for a long time to come, and they won't see us retreating anytime soon. How's that?
All right, that works. Shepard?
That pretty much solves that. Greg, when you went out on this venture, and we haven't gotten that much chance to talk over time because that's just how it's kind of been. When you went out on this mission, did you have any clue that you'd be sitting and standing inside Saddam Hussein's palace 19 days after you left the Kuwaiti border?
Yes. We knew the plan last night. We were briefed at about 1800 about coming and taking the palaces. Now, there were rumors about it about a day prior, and I got to tell you, there was some concern. I mean, it was a very ambitious mission that, at the tactical level, has gone well. Everything that the brigade commander said he was going to secure has been secured. There's still fighting going on. No casualties on the U.S. side, so it seems to have gone very, very well. And yeah, I guess we knew the plan, but maybe we had to see it to believe it, because as I said, there was some concern about the kind of resistance we would meet, and it's great to be talking to you from here.
It's great to hear from you. There were questions about the elite Republican Guard, the Special Republican Guard. Basically, Saddam Hussein's private security force said to number, depending on how you classify them, between 5,000 and 20,000. Said to be not combat ready, really, but certainly with the ability to defend him to the death. Did you meet with a lot of those folks, or is the sense that they are either somewhere else or have been eliminated?
It's hard to say who we actually encountered, whether they were Fedayeen or Republican Guard. Certainly some Republican Guard. But the thing that we hear from commanders the most is that they really have not been terribly impressed by the Republican Guard and their tactics. One reason might be that their command and control has essentially been eliminated. They're fairly confident that no one is really controlling anything when it comes to employing the Republican Guard. They're kind of just sporadically fighting at will if they feel like it, or taking off their uniforms and running away. And when they do fight, they haven't been employing their weapons well, they tell us. They haven't been taking advantage of the terrain. They're easily flanked. They're basically easily defeated. I shouldn't say easily. When you're engaged, it's very difficult, and they'll tell you that. But they've been decisively defeating them each time. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Greg Kelly, stand by for 1 second. There is breaking news now on Fox News Channel, and this just into us from Reuters, a bulletin coming from the southern city of Basra, and I believe we have a map to show you of that. The United Kingdom's Hoon now says British forces are now in the city of Basra to stay. This a crucial city. There has been extreme levels of fighting for the better part of a week. There were hundreds of paramilitary, Fedayeen, Saddam, and the rest holed up inside a number of buildings there. The fighting has been fierce, though it may continue. We now have from the United Kingdom forces that, in fact, they are in Basra and in Basra to stay. Also breaking at this moment, 2 U.S. Marines were killed and several others were wounded this morning as the Marines were fighting to secure 2 bridges over a tributary on the eastern edge of Baghdad. This, according to one of the key objectives of the United States forces who were advancing onto the city. Marines said both bridges were damaged during the fighting, apparently rendering them impassable, at least in the early going. But Reuters correspondent who was there later quoted Marines near the scene as saying they had seen their own tanks on the opposite side of this tributary attacking Iraqi positions. This suggested they had established a bridgehead. Quoting here, "There is very heavy tank and machine gun fire. The whole area is wreathed with smoke." This, according to a spokesman on the scene, adding that the white phosphorus rounds were exploding high in the air and burning fragments falling onto the Iraqis. 2 Marines were killed when an artillery shell landed on their turret of their amphibious assault vehicle, blasting through the tracked vehicle's armor. Multiple Marines were injured. And quoting here, "I know it was 2 that died. It was bad. It was an ugly scene." I'm not going to read the rest of this quote because that's just a little too much. This from Master Sergeant Marvin Crawford telling the reporter on the scene amid a din of mortars and small arms fire. So the long and short of it is that bridge may in fact be taken again. I'm going to ask the producers to speak up just a little louder, please. Rick Leventhal is now with us as well, and I want to get to him in a second. But one more bit of breaking news. We've been saying at the bottom of the screen that forces now surround the Ministry of Information. I can now report that that is no longer accurate. Latest word is we did surround the Ministry of Information at one point in the heart of Baghdad and a presidential palace along the way as well. But troops are no longer at the Al Rashid Hotel and no longer at the Information Ministry. They were there as a show of force of sorts, or that was the explanation which we were given throughout the night. As you know, Greg Kelly's been on the front lines all night long with the Army as they made their way into the city, taking these strategic positions. Rick Leventhal's crew has been securing an airstrip, or did for a long time overnight. Rick's live with us now. Rick, what do you know?
Well, Shepard, we've got a couple of Huey helicopters flying overhead at the moment. Their gun doors are open. The gunners are out. I'm not sure what they're looking for. There have been some ongoing security missions in this region for a while now. It looks like this guy's actually going to land. Here, turn around this way. He's getting very low. We've had a lot of security missions in this area as they search for possible holdouts and hostile forces, and there have been some incidents of hostilities between soldiers or rebels and coalition forces. In fact, there was a helicopter fired on yesterday. At least the helicopter says it was fired on, and it returned fire what it thought was a target, but it turned out to be a coalition force. It turned out to be a Marine light armored vehicle. It was a friendly fire incident, and that happened yesterday morning, apparently because the Cobra had been fired on and was looking for the source of that fire. The two Marines who were hit are okay. One of them might need some surgery, I'm told, but not life-threatening. They're also busy destroying tanks, armored personnel carriers, and other artillery type of equipment out here. They've been going through and finding all sorts of fully loaded tanks and armored personnel carriers out here left by the Iraqis, apparently in a big hurry. One company with the 3rd LAR destroyed 18 armored personnel carriers yesterday alone. Our units destroyed at least 3 tanks and 1 BMP-2, which is very similar to the light armored vehicle we travel in. So security operations continuing and operations to further disable whatever elements are left of the Iraqi army, Shepard.
Rick, is it your sense that you're going to be there for a while?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you that we're heading to Baghdad and we'll be, joining the troops on the front line. But right now, our sense is that our mission is here to protect the flank of other forces and to secure areas here that need securing so that more forces perhaps and more assets can be brought in.
Rick Leventhal live with the 1st Marine, 3rd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. Rick, we're going to get back to you throughout the morning here in New York. It's Fox and Friends time, and the Friends are downstairs. Man, what a morning as the sun starts to rise in New York, Brian and Steve. Amazing.
Absolutely. You know, what's interesting is, Shep, as I was reading the wires this morning, one of the accounts, as the soldiers took one of the presidential complexes, one of those big fancy ones in downtown Baghdad, what did they do? They did the natural thing. They went in and they took some souvenirs. A number of U.S. GIs have got ashtrays, and they've got pillows, and they've got some of the stuff from Saddam Hussein's crib.
And I love the guys that just went in there and said, I need some rest. Why not sleep in the palace? I'm tired of my sleeping bag. They did that. And then, of course, one of the bigger stories to happen is Chemical Ali, one less despicable person in this world. He was murdered, and thankfully in a cruise missile hit. He was found dead. They found his body, so he is gone. And then this story today in the Daily News and probably other places, Shep, about a possible chemical weapons find.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, a Knight Ridder reporter was traveling with the GIs, and a number of the GIs started to get sick, and he told his editor, this Knight Ridder reporter did, that apparently they had run into what could be a sarin gas depot, essentially. There was a whole bunch of 55-gallon drums in this warehouse, and when they went in, their eyes started to tear up. They got some welts on their skin. There was some vomiting. They went in, they used a handheld, apparently they've got a handheld sarin gas detector, and the initial test was positive. Then they did 2 more tests that were negative, and they did a 4th test that showed positive. So this could be the smoking gun that they have been looking for. Also, south of Baghdad a ways, apparently under a slab of concrete, they located 2 missiles, and on the warheads were some chemical icons that they thought could indicate that inside the warheads were some of the bad things that they've been looking for.
Also, they were told by some human intelligence, one of the people that surrendered, one of the officers that surrendered, said, go ahead and check this school. Start digging, Marines. So 50 miles southeast of Baghdad, they are looking for what could be huge vats of chemical weapons in some way, shape, or form. The other thing I like to see Greg do and others do is find the tunnels. Find the tunnels underneath these palaces, because that's where the magic bunkers are, and that's where we might see the 60-plus-year-old Saddam Hussein hide now, looking for some type of entrance. Because keep in mind, that airport revealed tunnels underneath the now Baghdad airport. That was found by Lieutenant Colonel Grimsley, running the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Infantry. They looked down, they found a tunnel, they found a secret entrance. Now they have to find the secret exit down there.
You know, and by the way, as we look at some of this video, extraordinary pictures from inside one of Saddam Hussein's palaces in downtown Baghdad. We keep seeing these shots of the bathroom. Apparently the GIs who have been out on the tanks for a while actually used some of Saddam's facilities. And I'm just hoping that they went inside and started running up his long-distance phone bill.
Yeah,
that'll really get
I've never sat on anything gold, but I think the GIs had an opportunity to do that. More on that later. We'll probably do a follow-up story.
Absolutely. So extraordinary pictures this morning, as it's hard to believe that Greg Kelly and his guys are right there outside Saddam Hussein's crib in downtown Baghdad.
And this is the story that Shep was just talking about. You know, this is extraordinary. But remember the 25-mile original Thunder Run right through the heart of Baghdad to tell everyone in Saddam land that the Americans have indeed arrived with coalition forces. Well, is this Thunder Run the sequel, or is this Thunder Run we're putting down stakes?
Well, you know, you would not, Brian, want to ask the Iraqi information minister, because earlier today, we actually had some of our forces go up to the information ministry in downtown Baghdad. And so the information minister is saying, we have no evidence that the American forces are here.
He called us rascals, which really hurt.
They were actually at his office when he was saying that they weren't there.
Yeah, you saw Greg saying that his guys, the officers, sit there with a map going, wait a second, we're watching Fox News there on the monitor. Where is the information minister? I think I could actually hear his bellicose manner. So I thought that was really interesting. The information minister, sooner or later, will have his beret and his body in cuffs, hauled out somewhere, maybe to a coalition prison.
All right, so that's the latest from Studio A. Shepard, back over to you.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. This just crossing. This from Army Captain Chris Carter of Watkinsville, Georgia, and I will quote, "I do not believe this city is freaking ours." That exclaimed as they walked around downtown Baghdad after U.S. forces in Iraq used tanks and armored vehicles to storm the center of Baghdad. They've seized 2 of his palaces, using the toilets, this reads, and helping themselves to ashtrays, pillows, glassware as souvenirs. They also did a lot of other taking within this city, and these are the exclusive pictures to Fox News, the entry into the parade grounds there, where today United States and coalition forces took over some of the most significant spots inside Baghdad for all of the Arab world to see. It's our understanding that many of these pictures were looped on Arab television throughout this Monday afternoon in Baghdad and across the Arab world, and that the word has spread that the lies are coming not from the coalition, but from the Iraqi regime, that in fact it's true. American and coalition forces are inside Baghdad, and our extensive 24-hour coverage of the war continues right now. It's 3:30 on the West Coast, 6:30 on the East Coast, and this was the scene just about 4.5 hours ago. A statue of Saddam Hussein blown to smithereens. And that tells much of the story of this early morning in New York and Los Angeles and across the United States. They may not be yet calling it
Baghdad, next to the city, I believe. Not quite sure exactly how far west, but Walt, thanks. Keep us posted there. Now, Carol again at the CNN Center.
We have reached the half-hour bill, 6:30 Eastern Time. It's time to bring you up to date about what's happening at this hour. Coalition troops have moved into Baghdad. The Pentagon says 105 armored vehicles rolled into the center of the city in the last few hours, and there are reports of U.S. casualties in the battle. Army sources say an Iraqi missile slammed into a tactical operations center in the battlefield. At least 6 soldiers are reportedly injured, and as many as 6 others are now missing in action. Take a look at this. It's inside of one of Saddam Hussein's many palaces. U.S. commandos took over the presidential palace compound as they moved into the city. The compound is quite large. You can see just how large. We understand that many of Saddam Hussein's palaces have bunkers beneath them. In northern Iraq, the U.S. Army's 173rd Airborne Brigade has been called into action for the first time in the war. In a pre-dawn assault, the Sky Soldiers fired 2 howitzer cannons at Iraqi soldiers for a solid hour near the city of Erbil. British officials say the notorious Iraqi general known as Chemical Ali is dead. General Ali Hassan al-Majid, Saddam Hussein's cousin, ordered a deadly chemical attack in 1988 that killed 5,000 Kurds in northern Iraq. British officials say Ali was indeed in his Basra home over the weekend when it was bombed by coalition forces. And it will be a trifold summit for President Bush as he meets with British Prime Minister Tony Blair in Belfast, Northern Ireland. On the agenda, reviewing final battle strategies and post-war plans for Iraq, new peace efforts for Northern Ireland, and a Middle East peace plan leading to a Palestinian state. A lot has been happening inside the city of Baghdad. U.S. forces moving to the center of the city. Let's check in with Reem Brahimi from Jordan to tell us more about that. Reem, good morning once again. This presidential palace, I want to start with that. What can you tell us about that? Because coalition forces are now inside that presidential palace, inside Baghdad.
Well, it's a very, very big palace. It's a huge, sprawling complex like many of President Saddam Hussein's palaces inside or outside the Iraqi capital. That palace in particular along the Tigris River, it's been bombed so many times before. I remember in the first few days of the bombings even, you could see from the view we had at the Palestine Hotel, you could actually see fires burning all day from the bombing of the previous night. So I don't think they would expect to find anyone of high-ranking value, anyone from the leadership of the regime in that palace. But I think it's got more of a symbolic value. That palace houses the offices of the presidency of the Republic of Iraq. It also has a lot of maybe residences for people who work at the palace. It's really more a symbolic value for the U.S. troops to have taken over that palace than anything else. Carol?
Also, there's a big park there where U.S. coalition tanks are sitting right now. That's a quite sizable park and quite popular with the population. It has a zoo inside, and I understand it's huge, and it has these huge statues of Saddam Hussein that coalition forces also destroyed.
Yes, a very, very big park. Baghdad is a very vast city. The streets are very wide, the avenues are also very broad, and it sort of stretches out a lot in a circle, if you will. Now that park is very, very wide as well, and it's part of it was an amusement park where until a few days before the war began even, you could see families going out there taking their children at the sort of amusement park in that area. But it was also part of it was also being reconstructed, and so it was at that stage basically of reconstruction when the U.S.-led campaign began.
I'd like to interrupt you for just a second, Reem.
From people,
Reem, we're seeing a statue of Saddam Hussein on a horse. That's one of the statues that coalition forces have destroyed now, right?
That's right. That's one of the more recent statues that had been placed of the president placed in Baghdad. But of course, it's not saying much. There are so many big statues of President Saddam Hussein throughout the Iraqi capital, as well as portraits of the president, maybe every 10 or 15 meters. So it's something that when you're in Baghdad, you sort of get used to. You just notice it when they're not there anymore. Definitely, again, I think the U.S. definitely seems to be going for the symbolism here and trying to attract the attention of people who may be seeing the residents of Baghdad, by doing these symbolic acts more than anything else for the time being. And of course, Carol, you can see maybe the military value, if you will, of the US and the coalition forces having taken over the airport, because this was precisely what it allows them to do. It allows them to conduct such raids in the heart of the Iraqi capital and either decide to stay there or go back if they feel like it.
Also, the information ministry building was targeted, yet the information minister was able to give an impromptu news conference somewhere on the streets of Baghdad.
Absolutely. The information ministry was targeted a couple of times at least since the beginning of this war, and the press center, which is where all the journalists are worked out of basically in Baghdad until the war began, this was where also you would go and check the messages. If there were any press conferences, you would go to the press center, deal with the Iraqi officials from the information ministry. Well, that whole center was actually moved to the Palestine Hotel where all the journalists were, and that hotel is right across the road from the presidential compound where the U.S. troops have made their incursion. Interestingly enough, the Minister of Information has been giving in the past week or so his press conferences in the Palestine Hotel, and I think it was either from the balcony of the hotel or from the street in front of the hotel that he was talking to reporters and saying it did seem quite surreal. If you had the view of the palace and the smoke behind you just across the river barely, the information ministry insisting that the U.S. troops hadn't been able to come into Baghdad because they'd been slaughtered and surrounded by Iraqi troops. Let's just listen to how he put it.
I will not mention the number of the people killed from their troops or what has been destroyed. The battle is still going on, and I can say and you can actually mark it for me, you can record it for me. They are beginning to commit suicides on the walls of Baghdad. And we will, in fact, encourage them to commit more suicides.
That, of course, Carol, raises many questions. How the government is still standing, where they're located, how it's functioning, how the system is still being able to put these things out and to function while U.S. troops are in the heart of the Iraqi capital. A lot of questions raised there.
Yeah, and
Carol?
One question I have is does the information minister just speak at will? Is he ordered to say certain things by certain people?
You know, it's probably a mix of both, Carol. He's obviously part of a system that's been in place for a long time, and probably part of him also believes in that system. Otherwise, it probably would be difficult for him to continue under these circumstances. On the other hand, we know that this is a very strict system, and once you're part of it, it's also made very difficult for whoever would like to leave. So it's probably a mix of both. The mere fact that he's still talking could also be an indication that he's still receiving orders to just continue as normal, or it could be just somebody trying to do his job till the very end. There's an infinite variety of possibilities, and of course very reflective of the current confusion and situation that is going on in the country right now. If you ask the people I spoke to, at any rate in Baghdad, nobody knows what's going on. They describe a city in state of war, but from one neighborhood to the other, they hear artillery, they hear mortar fire, but they don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Reem Brahimi, thanks for your insight. We sure appreciate it. Let's head back to Kuwait City and Bill.
All right, Kara, clearly the headline today is again on Baghdad with this strong move of U.S. forces into the center of that town earlier today. The Brits are now saying that Basra is in most of their control right now, perhaps a few areas that still have not been seized by the Brits. But there is a clear question right now as to what's happening in the northern part of Iraq. What's happening in the town of Tikrit, which is the ancestral homeland of Saddam Hussein. What's happening in the town of Mosul, where Jane Araf was reporting about an hour ago. We know there is fighting that is ongoing, but how much fighting still lays ahead? Perhaps CENTCOM will clarify that when they brief down in Qatar in about 20 minutes from now. And again, we will carry that live for you as we have now for about 3 weeks running. In the meantime, back to the Pentagon and Kathleen Koch for what's happening and what's on the radar there. Kathleen, good morning again.
Bill, you took the words right out of my mouth, because the Pentagon has said from the start that when it came to the battle for Baghdad, that the toughest fighting lay ahead. And they are saying again, this is not the final battle, that this is again an armed raid into the heart of Baghdad. And in many ways, largely serving a very symbolic purpose, though we are hearing these reports that, that some U.S. lives have been lost in this very bold foray into the heart of Baghdad. No confirmation yet from the Pentagon on just how many or the circumstances. But this raid, unlike the previous two, went right into downtown Baghdad, and it was very carefully orchestrated to be within direct line of sight, direct view of some pre-positioned international television cameras. A spokesman, a Captain Frank Thorpe, a spokesman for CENTCOM, said, quote, "This will give the first real view of U.S. forces moving through the city." Obviously an effort on the part of the U.S. to counter the continuing Iraqi claims that the U.S. forces were not only nowhere near Baghdad, that they didn't control the airport, and then you saw the quote that Reem Brahimi ran earlier, the videotape from the Iraqi information minister saying again U.S. forces are not in Baghdad, that Baghdad is safe and secure and great. But the U.S. sources here, military sources at the Pentagon, are saying, quote, "We are dominating the battlefield." This sends a powerful message to the remnants of the regime that we can go where we want, when we want. And that had been the message in previous days as the Iraqis efforted shutting down the borders of the capital in the nighttime hours from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m., imposing a curfew to, again, which the U.S. military basically scoffed, pointing out, you know, that an Iraqi soldier with a truck is going to be no match for tanks and for armored fighting vehicles as they try to come into the city. The U.S. saying it would operate when it wanted, where it wanted, as it wanted, despite this curfew. Now, again, symbolism, very important. The U.S. has, from the start, as Reem pointed out, been targeting the presidential palaces of Saddam Hussein from the air, believing they are valid military targets, that they're used in many cases for command and control. So they wanted not only to take them out from the air, but then to go in on the ground today and show U.S. forces walking in these palaces. An official here saying, quote, "It can't be anything but alarming to see a U.S. brigade commander standing in the compound of a presidential palace in Baghdad." And he called this action a show of force. The question is now, how long will these U.S. forces stay in downtown Baghdad? Perhaps we'll find out more on that from the upcoming CENTCOM briefing. But a pretty extraordinary day, that despite what spokesman for CENTCOM said earlier this morning, Captain Thorpe again saying this is just another day, when clearly it's far from that, Bill.
Yeah, clearly far from it. Indeed, you're right, Kathleen. You heard Jeff Hoon. The question went to him about 30 minutes ago as to the whereabouts of Saddam Hussein, the whereabouts of his two sons. How are they addressing that question right now at the Pentagon?
Well, at the Pentagon, they have said over recent days, when these questions come up, is Saddam Hussein alive or dead? Is that really him in these videotapes? And the U.S. military is saying, well, that's not really important, but what is important is that day by day, hour by hour, he is increasingly losing control of his forces. Some of the top commanders here at the Pentagon saying if he is indeed in command of Iraqi forces, then he's giving them some pretty bad advice, because the U.S. has been surprised to see the very poor quality of the fighting on the part of the Iraqis, the lack of any very cohesive, concerted, and really effective resistance. Bill.
Kathleen, thanks. Kathleen Koch at the Pentagon, watching things from there. CENTCOM will brief in about 15 minutes. We'll see what they have to say then, Carol. An extraordinary day thus far, as so many have been over the past 3 weeks run.
Definitely so, but we're going to get a preview of what CENTCOM may say a little later in about 15 minutes. Let's go to Tom Mentir, who is at Central Command in Doha, Qatar. Tom, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but we're hearing what may be an incident of friendly fire near where Martin Savage is. Do you know anything more about that?
No, we have not heard that here. Also, Reuters reporting that that U.S. officer says possible weapons of mass destruction storage site detected in central Iraq. Surely that will come on the agenda here for Brigadier General Vincent Brooks, who will be doing the CENTCOM briefing in less than 15 minutes. As Kathleen Koch was saying from the Pentagon, a lot of the visuals are about message, that we can come into central Baghdad as we will. And you look at where they visited. They visited the presidential compound today, and they also visited the Atomic Energy Commission of Iraq, a place where they probably wanted to go in and see if they could find any records that might still be there. So there is, I'm sure, a very carefully laid out plan, one for emphasis and two for effect. One may be certain sites that they want to visit in downtown Baghdad, because there had been concern that these weapons of mass destruction or possible chemical weapons might be inside the city in an area that they'd have to search. So I'm sure there is a great deal of methodology on target selection on the ground. They're coming in, and as we heard Captain Thorpe say earlier, this is a raid, and usually the word raid indicates in and out. So he says it's not about taking territory. So we'll find out in about 15 minutes, hopefully, during this CENTCOM briefing, what the intention was with the foray into Baghdad that's been going on all day.
Yeah, to many observers, it's maybe kind of surprising that CENTCOM is playing this down. You mentioned Captain Thorpe. He said it was just another day of trying to bring down the regime. Nothing special as compared to other days. But was it? Was it not?
Well, I think what they're trying to do is downplay a bit the feeling that this is a TV miniseries that starts on Sunday and ends on Saturday night. So I think that they constantly come out with the message day by day. The tougher days may lie ahead. An indication that possibly what's going on right now is simply a preview of what may come in coming days and weeks. That this battle is not going to be the end all. They say it's about the regime itself, not any particular individual military objectives. As we heard, the Chemical Ali, who was supposed to be defending southern Iraq, the man who was accused of using chemical weapons on the Kurds in the 1980s, who was also the governor of Kuwait after the invasion, that his body had been found by the British after an airstrike on Saturday night, possibly as significant as the images of tanks and APCs rolling through the streets of Baghdad, may be confirmation of his death.
And is there any sense from CENTCOM as to where they believe Saddam Hussein is? And I just ask you that because of the... Go ahead.
That's a $64 million question. There have been indications that he had to his disposal an underground bunker, maybe underneath one of the palaces, maybe underneath a school, maybe underneath a hospital or a mosque. No one's quite sure where that location is. So I doubt, with the force that we saw going in today, that they're going to have the ability to go in and do a thorough search underground unless they stumble upon something for what location he might be. But again, they have played up many, many times in these briefings that this is not about Saddam Hussein. He is the leader of the regime, but it's eliminating the hold the regime had on people. And I think I heard Group Captain Al Awkwad talk about the people coming out in Basra once the regime had been eliminated there, coming out in the thousands to greet their soldiers as they were on the street. So they look at that as large a victory as any other military objective.
All right, we're going to let you prepare for the briefing, the CENTCOM briefing, which is coming up at the top of the hour, 7 Eastern Time. And of course, Brigadier General Vincent Brooks will be the man talking. Let's head back to Kuwait City and Bill.
All right, Carol, thanks. I want to get back to Nasiriyah, the town in south central Iraq. There's a reporter on the phone by the name of Marie Colvin. She works with the Sunday Times. She had been airlifted earlier in the week, or possibly even today, I'm not quite sure just yet. We'll find from Marie in a moment, with a group known as Free Iraqi Forces. We had heard about this organization at the end of last week. And Marie, if you can hear me by way of telephone, a brief outline. What is this group all about?
It's newly formed Free Iraqi Forces, FIF. It's an Iraqi opposition army, the only Iraqi opposition army that's Arab, because of course, you know, you have the two Kurdish armies up in the north. No one wants them to come into central Iraq because, you know, the tensions between the Arabs and the Kurds. It's led by Ahmed Chalabi, the leader who's always been a political leader of the Iraqi National Congress. He's now here. There's several hundred Iraqi opposition soldiers coming in by American airlift every night, and they plan to take the battle to Saddam.
Yeah, well, what is the intent of this group? Where are they headed?
Well, we're on a rather austere base at the moment. It's a bombed and deserted Iraqi army base. They're heading next to Nasiriyah, probably Amara. The ultimate goal is Baghdad. There's two aims here. This is not just a combat army. They're working within the American war plan. The military aim is basically to kind of work alongside. They have an extensive network in all the cities here, so to help get rid of the opposition that the American forces are facing. You know, as you know, even in cities they've already taken, they're getting shot at, or the Saddam Fedayeen. They know these people. Root them out, and eventually form the nucleus of the new Iraqi army.
Just give me a better description of the people that you're with. Are these Iraqi exiles? Are they Iraqi Americans? Are they Sunni? Are they Shia? How do they break down?
Well, it's about half and half. They very carefully done the mix because the controversy. I'd say about 50% are Iraqi exiles. About 50% are Iraqis who've come over. One of the units here is led by an Iraqi Republican Guard captain who just came over about a week ago. There's Sunni and Shia. There's quite a few Shia because their first targets are in the south here, and they're very much trying to get the local people and more of the Iraqi army to come over.
Yeah, and also, Marie, at full strength, how large would this group be then in Iraq?
Right now, the base I'm at, we've got 700 here. As I said, a couple hundred more coming in every night. The number's expected within the next week to be up to 3,000. That's people who've already been recruited, trained. I mean, everyone here has a weapon and is in uniform. What they hope is get some of these, Iraqi army people coming over. Or they hope the ranks will swell. But at the moment, enlisted, names on a list, that's 3,000.
So this is the base then. This is the foundation for the future military in Iraq once the war's over.
Well, that's very much Ahmed Chalabi's goal, who's leading this force, is to form the nucleus of an Iraqi army that is not Ba'athi, that has had nothing to do, or at least no agreement with the Ba'ath Party. Equally, there's a political goal. They want to be, Chalabi's obviously a leading opposition politician. Eventually, be a nucleus of a Iraqi government, interim government, and once elections come, the nucleus of an Iraqi government.
All right, Marie, thanks for checking in. Marie Colvin on the telephone, a writer with the Sunday Times with this group known as Free Iraqi Forces. As she indicated, could be several thousand strong in a matter of days, landing now in Nasiriyah, and eventually, as she says, they hope to make their way to Baghdad. Carol?
All right, Bill, thanks. We want to head to northern Iraq and Jane Arraf. She's been sitting on a ridge somewhere east of the town of Mosul. And Jane, I wanted to ask you first off, could you hear Bill's report and the guest he had with him?
Sorry, Carol, we've got a bit of trouble in the audio. Could you just ask that again?
Certainly can. Could you hear Bill Hemmer's report and the guest he had with him?
What I've just heard is Marie Colvin talking about Ahmed Chalabi being airlifted to Iraq to start an Iraqi force, which is quite extraordinary here, certainly, as well. I mean, the Kurds obviously had believed that they would have a key position in that. It's an interesting development.
Yeah, I was just wondering how the Kurds, what the Kurds would think of that, this Iraqi opposition army that's now coming together.
Well, the Kurds have an interesting role here. You can probably see on this hill, Carol, that it's an interesting mix here. We've got a small group of U.S. Special Forces who are holding this ridge. Now, this ridge is just before a key intersection, pretty well halfway between those major cities of Mosul and Kirkuk. Most of the people on this ridge are Kurdish fighters, Peshmerga, those who defy death is what the name means. And they have really wanted a role in this battle. They haven't received as much of a role as they thought they would. They have not been armed, despite, they say, promises by the U.S. to arm them. It's mostly because Turkey has objected. Now, this force that's shaping up in the south of Iraq, of Iraqi exiles, is an interesting development, but not taken very seriously here, it has to be said, particularly since there is at the fore of it an opposition leader, the head of the Iraqi National Congress, Ahmed Chalabi, who has pretty well been sidelined in terms of Iraqi opposition figures. Obviously, the U.S. is working very closely with the military here, as well as political leaders, Kurdish political leaders. And the Iraqi opposition has always been very diverse, very fragmented. That's part of the problem. But it will be interesting to see how this shapes up, any force that's headed even politically by this opposition figure who has lately been sidelined from the Iraqi opposition that is made up primarily so far of Kurds and Shia leaders. Carol?
Understand. And just a quick update as to what's happening now in the battle.
Well, what we're seeing now is on this part of the front line, and it's fairly typical actually, it sort of represents the slow and steady advance that U.S. Special Forces have been making along the front line all along here in northern Iraq. Now, this is particularly interesting. Yesterday there was an intense day-long battle after a group of special forces on a ridge further ahead of here were confronted by Iraqi tanks in an offensive position that's relatively rare around here. Now, they responded with a day of barrages of anti-tank missiles and airstrikes, and they believe they took out 10 tanks. Now, right now, what's happening is that they've sent a reconnaissance party further along the road on a further ridge down there, but it's a very hazy day, and they're not entirely sure what lies just beyond that haze, whether the Iraqis do have the power to come back and pose a threat or whether they're safe. And they're still holding this ridge. They intend to go forward, certainly, but they're still waiting to see what happens. In other parts of the north, yesterday we saw near Dohuk, near the Turkish border, at least 2 towns that had been held by Iraqi forces that were taken by U.S. Special Forces with the Kurdish fighters. But still, it really is very slow and steady, and there is intentionally no major push towards Kirkuk and Mosul so far. Carol?
Understand. Jane Arraf reporting from the northern front. Let's take you back to Baghdad now, somewhere south and east of the city, and rejoin Martin Savage, who is embedded with the Marines. And Martin, you were telling us a short time ago about casualties and maybe an incident of friendly fire. Any more information on that?
No, we haven't heard any more on that, Carolyn. It takes a lot of time sometimes to figure out exactly what has happened, especially when you're involved in a conflict at the time and that conflict may be ongoing. But we understand that was with the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines. They're slightly ahead of us. They were apparently working to create a bridgehead and take an Iraqi bridge. Part of that bridge had been blown out. As they were preparing to move, they were hit by artillery, and we understand that at least one armored personnel carrier in which the Marines ride was struck, and that there were casualties. We don't know the extent of the casualties. We don't know how many. And what is uncertain at this point is, was this friendly fire, because there's a lot of Marine artillery that's pouring down around this region, or was it indirect fire coming from the Iraqis themselves? Just a few minutes ago, before we came to air, we had 2 shells land extremely close to our position here. Again, not sure who's firing, where it's coming from. There is a lot of firing going on in the area here. You hear artillery and the thumping of mortars as well that seems to be ongoing. You also hear the sounds of heavy machine guns nearby. There's another one. So you're not quite certain exactly where this battle is being waged or what exactly is being fought for. We do know that there are a number of bridge crossings around here that are essential and important to get across the Tigris to start moving west into the city of Baghdad from the eastern side, which is where we are now. Some of those bridges have been destroyed or partially damaged by retreating Iraqi troops. They would do that obviously to try to stymie U.S. forces coming across. It doesn't work very effectively actually, because the Marines bring their own bridge-making material right up front with them, so they can quickly have a temporary bridge up and running and ready to move heavy armor across with only a few hours delay, if that at all. So right now you see that our column is poised, ready to move, prepared to go wherever it's being directed, and standing by to enter into Baghdad, if that's in fact the request made.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that you put your helmet on, because you haven't had it on all morning, and you know, we just worry about you, Martin. And a question for you about these bridges. Were they laden with explosives that were planted by the Iraqis? Is that what you meant by bridges being partially destroyed by Iraqis?
It's unclear how well they were prepared for these bridges and for perhaps the quick advance of Marines coming in from the east side. It hasn't been confirmed to us whether these were destroyed by perhaps indirect fire, meaning calling in their own artillery on their own bridges, or whether there had been some orchestrated effort to wire these bridges for demolition. Not all the bridges have been blown. In fact, there are a number of them that are intact, and this one was only partially done. So whatever they may have planned for contingency doesn't seem to have worked out too well at this particular point, Carol.
The place in which you are standing, Martin, seems rather barren. Are you seeing any people around?
No, this particular area where we are is kind of barren. I could go into detail, but you know what, that would give away sort of where we are. And since we've already got artillery coming close to us, I don't think I want to give any more finer details. It's just that this is not part of the, if you were to wander outside of here, you'd find a significant suburban population.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want you to be specific. I just wondered if civilians were interfering with the mission there, and apparently they are not. Martin Savage, we're going to let you go. Thanks very much.
Right.
We've almost hit the top of the hour, 7 Eastern time. We want to bring you up to date now at what's been happening. U.S. troops are now operating in Baghdad. More than 100 armored vehicles entered the city about daybreak, meeting some resistance, but there have been no major battles. They've seized several government buildings, though. Among the buildings seized, Saddam Hussein's main presidential palace compound, an Abrams M1A1 battle tank now sits at the entrance to that compound. The Pentagon official says the U.S. Army is able to go where it wants, when it wants. After the raid on the capital began, Iraq's Minister of Information held an impromptu news conference in the streets of Baghdad. He denied U.S. tanks had pushed into the heart of Baghdad, and he insisted Iraqi troops are slaughtering U.S. troops. Early reports indicate the U.S. has suffered some casualties in the battle for Baghdad. CNN's Walter Rogers reports an Iraqi missile wounded at least 6 soldiers of the Army's 2nd Brigade of the 3rd Infantry. Up to 6 others are missing in action. And CNN's Martin Savage just reported at least 1 armored personnel carrier from the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, was struck by Iraqi forces as it crossed the Tigris River. There are an unknown number of casualties. According to the British military, the body of the Iraqi general known as Chemical Ali has been found. Ali is Saddam Hussein's cousin, and he's reported to have ordered the use of chemical weapons against the Kurds in 1988, killing about 5,000 people. Coalition forces bombed his home in the southern city of Basra over the weekend. The Iraqi National Congress, the Saddam Hussein opposition group, said its forces have joined the military campaign against the Iraqi regime. A unit called the 1st Battalion Free Iraqi Forces will serve under the U.S. Central Command. The troops will assist coalition forces in the battle and help deliver humanitarian aid. To the right of me, you're seeing President Bush leaving for Ireland, where he will meet up with Tony Blair. They have a full agenda, and of course we'll keep you posted as that story progresses. It will be a tri-fold summit for President Bush. Let's get into that right now. As a matter of fact, he'll meet with Prime Minister Tony Blair in Belfast. On their agenda specifically, reviewing final battle strategies and post-war plans for Iraq, new peace efforts for Northern Ireland, and a Middle East peace plan leading to a Palestinian state.
And good morning back there in the U.S., 7 a.m. in the East Coast. I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in Kuwait City, Monday, April 7th, as we begin a new week again today. And there are significant developments from overnight in the heart of Baghdad. A live picture right now from the Iraqi capital, now encircled by U.S. forces on all sides. Earlier today, U.S. troops entered Saddam Hussein's presidential palace. They also checked out a number of other locations, including the Information Ministry and the Al Rashid Hotel as well. We are told through the U.S. Army, this time in Baghdad, it is for real. Quickly to Walt Rogers, checking up again. 2 hours ago, Walt broke some news here on CNN about an attack on a group of the U.S. 3rd Infantry. Walt, what's happening now? Good afternoon there.
Pretty much the same, Bill. The Iraqis did fire a missile, some sort of perhaps wire-guided missile, at the 2nd Brigade headquarters, 3rd Infantry Division. There are casualties, at least 6 wounded, and it was apparently quite an explosion when it hit. There may, as I say, 6 wounded that we know of, 4 to 6 missing in the initial count immediately afterwards. This is a direct consequence, of course, of the attack on Baghdad this morning. The 2nd Brigade headquarters, of course, would have been in command of those forces that went into the city of Baghdad. Those forces in Baghdad now are 3 Army battalions. And what's different today is Army sources are telling CNN this is not a foray. Those 3 battalions are inside the city. They're there to hold it. Bill?
Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you again.
Just about 50 minutes for General Vincent Brooks down in Qatar at Central Command headquarters. And if you're just joining us this morning here on CNN, it has been another day of fascinating and quick developments in and around Baghdad, and that is the headline right now. General Brooks saying that the U.S. is, quote, a long way from celebrating victory, but now appears they may be a substantial step closer to that. Earlier today, right when the sun broke in Baghdad, a huge column of tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles had entered from the western part of the city. The Marines came in from the east, we are told, and that armored column of vehicles has moved through for quite some time. How long they stay, though, appears to be an open-ended question. General Brooks saying the commanders on the ground will determine if the troops stay. Earlier, he has said that the regime on behalf of Iraq retains some capability, but no overarching control. One other item in there, Chemical Ali, there was reported about 5 hours ago by half of the British military that they had gotten a positive identification on his body in a home in Basra. But CENTCOM, again, repeating what Jeff Hoon said earlier today in London, that there is no more in terms of confirming the reports that came out earlier today regarding the Chemical Ali, the man known for that, based on the allegations leveled against him back in 1988. Accused of gassing the Kurds in northern Iraq. That's the break from CENTCOM. We're going to go through this information throughout the day here. Carol Costello back at the CNN Center. Back to Carol now. Carol, good morning again there.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks. You mentioned northern Iraq, and you heard General Brooks say coalition forces around Mosul are isolating regime fighters. Our Jana Raff has been watching the action. She joins us now to bring us up to date. Jane.
Hi, Carol. Well, we're just down the road from a major intersection, pretty well halfway between those major cities of Mosul and Kirkuk. And we've been here with U.S. Special Forces who have been dug in on this ridge for the past couple of days. Now, spectacular fights yesterday with Iraqi tanks. Today, there seems to be a bit of a lull, but the threat still appears to be there. We have with us one of those Special Forces, a Special Forces communicator, who he can't give us his name right now. But, Sergeant, I wonder if you could just tell us, what is it like up here?
Well, that's a good question. It's very challenging at times and other times very rewarding. We're all proud to be here and proud to be fighting with our Peshmerga counterparts. And I'm very pleased at the progress and us and our fellow forces have been making so far.
And how is that cooperation going with the Peshmerga, particularly after the incident yesterday, the friendly fire incident, where 18 of them were killed and 45 wounded? Have you felt that that has affected the relationship?
All I can say is my personal interactions with the Peshmerga, and they are very, very good soldiers, and they fight alongside with us the entire time. Their attitudes towards us have not changed one bit.
Much different case being here, I suppose, than in the south. I mean, how have you felt about the level of threat here in the north?
We're always on our toes for anything, and it doesn't matter whether we're behind the lines or, far away, that we always try to maintain a heightened level of security and situational awareness in order to not let anything, surprise us.
Now, we are up here on this ridge. It's very picturesque, as I think people can see through here, but it's extremely hazy. This is the direction that the tanks came from yesterday. How much of a threat is there out there? Is it possible to tell?
Well, there's always a threat, but with our training and with our equipment, we can always counter that threat like we did yesterday.
And what happened yesterday? I mean, there was talk that you took out maybe 10 Iraqi tanks. Could that be it? Could that
I don't want to get into operational matters at this time, but what I can say is the Iraqis came at us, and we sent them back several times, severely bleeding, and I don't think they're going to be coming back anytime soon, hopefully.
All right. Is it possible to tell what's going to happen now? I mean, you're still on this ridge. You've got horses up the road.
We own this territory, and what happens next will be seen. We don't know yet.
Thanks very much, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Carol, that was the word from Special Forces on this ridge on just before a major intersection, halfway between Mosul and Kirkuk. Now, we have been seeing what appears to be sporadic bombing with some spectacular explosions from Mosul. That appears to have been an ammunition depot that has been blown up. And along the front line, all along the north of Iraq here, we have been seeing Special Forces with the Peshmerga advance a little bit into areas vacated by the Iraqi forces. But so far, of course, not enough forces here on the ground to make that major push. Carol?
Understand. Jana Raff reporting live from northern Iraq. Now back to Kuwait City and Bill.
All right, Carol, clearly to our viewers at home, the headline again today is what is happening inside of Baghdad. Lisa Rose Weaver is embedded with the military. She joins us by telephone. I think you're pretty close to the capital city, Lisa. Not quite sure exactly what's happening there.
Yes, Bill. Well, I am about 10 kilometers away from Baghdad, just outside the international airport. I'm embedded with an air defense, Patriot defense unit, which has just set up, and I can hear to the north of us heavy artillery fighting in Baghdad. It's nothing that I can see exactly, but there's a fairly constant barrage of very, very heavy booming. Earlier, we explored some Republican National Guard bunkers that were apparently abandoned very much at the last minute. Lots of ammunition, abandoned clothes. Notably, one of the captains conducting the search discovering baby formula there. He says he suspects that the Iraqi soldiers were eating it for vitamins because all else they had to eat appears to have been bread and potatoes. Other than that, it's been a smooth journey to this point. Nothing going on in the immediate vicinity, but again, we hear that artillery in Baghdad. Bill?
All right, Lisa, we got a report about 3 hours ago from Walt Rogers that that time it was described as an incoming missile. It's some sort of operation center run by the 3rd Infantry Division. I know you're with this air defense unit here. Do you know as to whether or not, or can you even tell us, whether or not Patriot missiles have gone with you to this location in the event that incoming missiles would be fired at U.S. forces?
Well, yes, that is the function of having a Patriot battery at this location. So far, we've only been here a few hours. There hasn't been need to utilize them, but that indeed is why they're here. There is, you mentioned the 3rd Infantry. There is a lot of infantry in the area. We passed many tanks and other military vehicles on the way up. But again, where I am is outside the airport, not inside, and I can't really see what's going on there on the other side of the wall. Bill?
All right, Lisa, thanks. Lisa Rose Weaver embedded there just outside of Baghdad. We will check in when we get more. I'm Bill Hemmer, live in Kuwait City. Carol, good to be with you again. I'll continue on as we go forward now on this Monday.
Yeah, and I have to say goodbye right now, but of course I'll be back tomorrow morning. Bye, Bill.
You got it. See you then, Carol.
CNN's coverage begins right now.
Nobody but the service experts at Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealers bring you the blue waters and the pirates of the Caribbean. Nobody else offers
run expeditions, as they might be described. The term the military is using, going into the presidential palace this morning and occupying that with U.S. forces. It is something that, according to CENTCOM, they are going to do and continue to do, and there are decisions being made by commanders on the ground as to where to go and when.
Hey, Pat, you said occupying the palaces. Does that mean they're still there?
Occupying the palaces. The latest information we had was that they were still there. I can't confirm, in fact, at this moment that they're still there, and I suppose perhaps using the term occupying might have been the wrong choice of words, John. A slip of the tongue, forgive me, perhaps. It might be better going to the palaces, and we certainly saw pictures this morning that illustrated just the kind of effect that that has. And one reporter, in fact, asked General Brooks what it was like at CENTCOM when they saw pictures of those U.S. troops in the presidential palace. Let's listen to his response. I'm told we don't have that piece of sound right now, but in effect, what they did say was that although it was very, very important to see it, that they were pleased by it, that it was only part of this continuing campaign. It is also a campaign that that still continues to have a cost. We learned this morning of a rather significant event, an attack on a U.S. command post of the 3rd Infantry Division south of Baghdad this morning. Hostile fire, either a missile strike or artillery, which initial reports say killed 6 people and wounded several more. John?
All right, Pat Dawson at the Pentagon. Pat, thank you very much. And it is the top of the hour, so we might go to our headlines now and bring you the latest information. As Pat just told you, defense officials have now confirmed that a missile struck a U.S. tactical operations center. It was on the southern outskirts of Baghdad. It happened today. They believe the missile was from hostile fire. Initial reports say that 6 U.S. soldiers were killed, 6 others wounded. We'll pass on more details as we get them. U.S. troops stormed deeper into the heart of Iraq's capital today. They seized Saddam's new presidential palace and removed a statue of Saddam on a horse. The U.S. tanks also briefly surrounded the information ministry and the Al Rashid Hotel. Reports say more than 100 tanks and armored fighting vehicles rolled into the capital, backed by warplanes and pilotless drones. New developments south of the Iraqi town of Hindiya today. Reuters reports U.S. biological and chemical weapons experts believe they may have found an Iraqi storage site for weapons of mass destruction. A public affairs officer with the 3rd Infantry says, quote, "Our detectors have indicated something," and he added, "This is an initial report, but it could be a smoking gun." You can get the latest headlines every 15 minutes on MSNBC or on the web at msnbc.com. A lot going on the battlefield. Let's go to our retired Army Colonel Jack Jacobs, our MSNBC military analyst, to find out what's going on. Jack?
Yeah, John, let's take a quick look at the map so we can get an overall view of what the command is attempting to do in Baghdad. You're going to see a huge pincer movement over here with the Marines on the left. Coming up and crossing the canal, crossing the river here. This was a bridge was blown down here, and then crossing the canal. Lead elements are across and on the outskirts of Baghdad. In the south, the elements of the 82nd Airborne Division securing egress down Route 8. The 3rd Infantry Division, just north of the airport, seized the airport just the other day, and combined arms teams making up the other pincer you can see effectively surrounding the city and preventing any exit. We'll talk about north some other time later on in the hour. But the big move today is a large, probably 2 battalions or greater of heavy troops. That's M1A1 Abrams tanks, a large number of them, 65 to 75, plus a large number of Bradley fighting vehicles containing mechanized infantry, moving right up Route 8 and straight to the Al Sajud Palace, what is also called the New Palace, and then sending up a cordon in front of the Ministry of Information as well as the the Al-Rashid, and then withdrawing. They still may be down here at the palace, but it shows that we can move anywhere we want to, certainly in this region, in some force. Back to you, John.
All right, Colonel, and now we go over to Chris.
Now to the latest on the battle for Iraq's capital. John Irvine from our broadcast partner shows how it all unfolded as U.S. tanks surrounded the city today.
They didn't know it when these pictures were taken, but within minutes, these Iraqi soldiers would become frontline troops. They were manning a strategic position at a bend in the Tigris and less than a mile from the city center. This was a base the Americans had come to clear out, and soon we could see several Bradley armored personnel carriers. The Americans were directing heavy machine guns at the Iraqi riverside emplacements. Here, they set fire to an oil store. We saw several Iraqi soldiers scrambling into the water to save themselves. Wait and watch for the last man. He just makes it. In the skies above Baghdad, A-10 tank busters provided cover for the Americans on the ground. Nonetheless, some Iraqis still managed to fire at the invaders. They did hit the Bradleys, but from what we could tell, the munitions bounced off. We are listening to the sound of fighting from the east, from the south, and from the west. This incursion is on a completely different scale from the raid mounted by the Americans on Saturday. We can now truly say we are watching the battle for the center of the Iraqi capital unfold. Throughout, American gunners targeted two nearby palaces. One of them features busts of the Iraqi president's historical hero, Saladin the Victor, decorating one of the homes of Saddam, the soon-to-be vanquished. These pictures were taken inside a third palace not far away. Soldiers from the American 3rd Infantry had little difficulty taking the place over and inspecting its luxurious interior. In the grounds, some of the US troops felt confident enough to take a rest. Back at the riverbank, their colleagues were emerging from their Bradleys. They too appeared surprisingly relaxed. The Iraqis, on the other hand, were making a run for it, at least one of them still in his underwear. Not all of them got away either. Here you can just make out the Americans taking an Iraqi soldier prisoner. Minutes later, this country's information minister appeared at our hotel to try to paint a very different picture of what had happened, but his words flew in the face of what everyone had seen.